These goddamn humans. We have been at war with them for what? 9 cycles? This war is getting on my nerves. Normally in a war, most fighting would be done by the Navy. Just jump from one system to the next, take out the defences or make any defenders flee, and on goes the loop, over and over again, until one side has had enough or doesn't exist. Normally the latter is very much frowned upon, but sometimes that's just how war goes. Not with the humans, though. Ugh, humans. It was a simple border dispute. They said they claimed 3 systems that we had built a station in before us, and we laid claim to 3 of their systems. None of the systems were all that valuable. Sure, there were 1 or 2 mineral-rich rocks there, and a pulsar over there, but all this was about was essentially who has the longer stick to keep the other away from their home. The difference that would have arisen if either side had won was, drumroll, 1 hyperspace jump. Great! An astonishing advantage to have. Completely necessary and justifies a war in all accounts. Don't get me wrong, I love my nation. There was a reason I rose so high in the ranks of our military, but politicians? Don't get me started. Only because of them do I have to fight humans now. What's so bad about fighting humans? Everything. Firstly, because of their efficiency. They, the United Nation of Terra, or UNT, decided to terraform every oh-so-slightly habitable world in their relatively small territory. Every tomb world, every savannah world, every Arctic world, any planet that didn't have at least an 85% habitability score, they turned into a continental world akin to their cradle world. What that meant for us is quite simple. Resistance on every damn world. Now, instead of a navy job, this war became a job for the army. Hence my involvement. But that also leads me right to my second point. They don't give up. Sure, both sides are trying to keep the morality rate low. They have their Red Cross, we have our white feathers. Everyone tries to help somewhat, but they surely aren't making things easy for us. If they think they have the slightest chance of winning, I've never seen a human not take that chance. That's why every one of us now has to carry at least 16 cuffs of any sort on them at any time, be it zip ties or other. Keep in mind, 1 man isn't supposed to watch over more than 3 prisoners alone, whereby 2 is already a challenge. But what that also entails is that unless every nook and cranny of a planet is searched, and every single combatant is captured or killed, and there are no arms left whatsoever, the civilians or other partisans could use against us, we can't say we control that planet, because if there is, and we do say that, by the gods there will be someone taking that as a challenge to prove us wrong. But you'd think at least fighting the humans on nearly the same planet every time, over and over, things would start to go smoother after a while. Well, you'd be wrong. And why is that? 2 words. Cultural diversity. You'd think that, like with any other species that made it into the Galactic Senate, that they would have one culture. One culture that proved themselves to be superior, either by assimilating all others or destroying them. But no. It's even in their name, United Nations. Yeah, just as united as the Senate, meaning next to not at all. But wouldn't you guess, what's the thing nearly every one of these nations agrees on fully? That's right, war. That's why they have the UNTAF, United Nations of Terra Armed Forces. Not the best of acronyms spelled out, but it's not too bad, I guess. What does that mean for us? Exactly. We don't have a goddamn clue what nation's military will be fighting next. Don't get me wrong, most of the times they work in combined arms, and many nations specialise in one particular field of warfare, but every one of them can function on their own. Take, for example, the Deutsch people. From what we have seen, they specialise mostly in tanks and armoured infantry, but all other branches of theirs are formidable foes as well. But then they'll be working with the Americans, and their specialty, from what I could tell, was having a large infantry force, if not the largest, together with having most of the stuff infantry can man. Artillery, air defense, tank distraction squads, man-pads, and the list goes on. But I tell you, that doesn't mean I want to fight their tanks or air force either. And then there was this other nation. The flag they wore was blue and yellow. I think they're called Ukrainians? If you see their flag, don't ever let any little bit of equipment be left behind. It doesn't matter what, it doesn't matter how much or little it was, they will find a way to turn it against you. One time they raided a supply point where some of our tanks were waiting for repairs and rearmament. Those tanks were then gone. A week or so later we found them again, and the bad end of the barrel, of course, looked straight at us. To our confusion, the hull was littered with strange olive-painted boxes that were bolted to it. When our tank destruction crews tried to fight the tank and fired on its weak spot, we had to find out that these boxes exploded upon impact and redirected the penetrators of our missiles, causing them to not go through. Yeah, we learned that lesson the hard way. The only glimmer of hope I have right now is that on this planet, at least my unit finally managed to make the force we were fighting retreat, boding well to the prospect that I can soon get back up into space and be relieved by the next general coming in. We only had to cross one last open field to take advantage of the situation, and hopefully catch them before they could effectively regroup, and I pray to the gods have them surrender. I didn't like it either, but that field was the only option we had to get there in time. "Sir," shouted a private, storming into the TOC, his headset hanging at half-mast like he tried to yank it off, and got it stuck in his feathers. "What is it?" I asked annoyedly, frustrated at both the fact that my inner monologue was disrupted, and what my monologue was about. "The Navy is retreating," he said with exhaustion, as he tried to regain his breath. I let my head fall onto the table in front of me with a long groan. I am so done with this war. I took a quick breath and stood up. "Your report has been noted. Dismissed," I said, waving him back out the door. It took him a bit to apparently process my reaction. When he finally got himself back together, he tried to salute. "Just go," I said annoyedly. "What are we going to do now, sir?" asked one of the officers in the room. "Well, what else can we do than wait for the counterattack? I mean, it can't take that long. It's not like the front line is dozens of hyperlanes long. We'll proceed as planned with the remaining forces on the planet, and then see what sort of defense we can mount against their counteroffensive." "Inform Tannen about this," said the officer to the radio operator. "TOC to Red Talon, be advised we have lost space superiority. Proceed as planned and then return to defensive positions. Over." "Red Talon copies. Out," came the short reply. While they continued on their way, they were arguing about how the mission is practically already over and what we were expecting of them. A miracle, that's all. Can't be too hard. But just as they passed the crest of a hill, they heard something coming down from the skies. Looking up, they saw that one of their cruisers was descending into the high atmosphere and had shot something down towards them. Did they actually resort to orbital bombardment? No. That was too slow for that. Don't tell me. The men ducked for cover behind the hill, rifles aimed at the predicted impact points of the drop pods. Mere seconds after they crashed into the ground, the first soldiers clad in a very weird set of armour. They were in full suits of black armour and wore rounded, goggled helmets with chainmail covering the lower half of their heads. On their arms they actually wore different flags, but all prominently had a cross on it, albeit in different colours. And it seems like most of them have ballistic shields with them. And what's that on their belts? I couldn't get a good angle of the rest of their equipment, because when the first few left their pods, they immediately laid down suppressive fire, and my men were busy either finding cover or trying to return fire. Once everyone, it seemed, had departed the pods, we heard an order echo through the field. "Skullborg!" "What does that mean?" asked another officer curiously, and we all looked to the one guy on the team who everyone knew was a linguistics nerd. "On it," he said, and took a tablet from the desk next to him. Meanwhile, I turned my attention back to the screens in front of me. Slowly, the question was answering itself. From what I can gather, skald or skuld means shield in various Scandinavian languages. From the few soldiers that were risking, we saw in their camera feeds that the enemy was starting to form up in a line, in 2 or 3 rows. Shields to the front and shields over the top. And Borg means something along the lines of a fortress, castle or city. And that was when everyone looked back to the screen, only to see a fully formed shield wall standing in front of our soldiers. "Skullborg Fornstegdig," came the reply from another voice. Something was off, though, with their shields. There was a sort of blue hue to them. It reminded me of something. I just couldn't figure out what exactly. Was it just the material, or... Suddenly, they began stomping on the ground, rhythmically. Some also seemingly bashing against their shields from behind, judging by the sound. "Hey! You lame men!" they began shouting in unison. "Hey! Hero there!" Euremelos! I won't lie. Hearing that many voices cry something like that in complete unison gave me shivers down my spine, and my feathers started to stand up. Min wob nasu! Will made them! I bemove the honi! I bemove the honi! And with every beat, with every stomp, they inched closer to our troops. God nav skirov! I'm swimed! Folkia forgalned! Folkia forgalned! Who? Wa! Who wa opkam hare hit lot! When the first soldiers recovered from this sudden surge of primal fear instilled in them, and started firing, the whole crest of the hill was lit up by the flashes of their muzzles. Still, the wall continued inching closer. And now I knew what the glow reminded me of. They had shield emitters on their ballistic shields, and the shields, both energetic and physical, overlapped, creating a near unstoppable barrier to our weapons. "Eh! Ele men!" they continued. "Eh! Hero there! Euremelaos! Min wabnasu! Wille made thame! I boma honi! I boma honi!" By the time the energy shields started showing weaknesses on points where fire was being concentrated, they were only about 20 meters away, and already started occasionally returning fire, with pistols briefly being shoved through between the shields. They continued their chanting. The way they screamed this primitive language with such vigor, and in a way you could feel their thirst for your blood, was... calling it unsettling would be the understatement of the century. And I wasn't even there. All I could do was watch from the safety of a bunker. Gott naviskerov! I'm swimed! Folkia forgalned! Folkia forgalned! Who? War! Who war upcome? Hare hit lot! And when the shield finally broke in one spot of the shield wall, and the combined fire of 5 to 10 rifles ripped through the ballistic shield, the soldier behind the shield collapsed under his shield, and seeing this, his shield brothers and sisters started storming towards our men with axes. Axes? Highly advanced and very much technicized, for lack of a better word, axes, but still very much axes. Most tried to gun them down before they got too close. Others just booked it and ran. Meanwhile, the two men behind the warrior that had been killed in the formation covered his body as they fell back. I looked around the room, while behind me my men were either slaughtered, or on rare occasions taken prisoner by the berserkir, as they call themselves. I looked every soldier in the room with me dead in the eyes one by one, as they couldn't help but look at the blood-splattered video feeds behind me. Fuck this. We are surrendering.